Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfiltered Vet Discussions. My name is Kelly, and I'm being joined by Peter and Phil and David and Jenny today. You can look us up at unfilteredvetdiscussions.com. We're also on various social media channels that you pursue with interest, and also many podcast channels. So come check us out. You can see us all listed on our website. Today's topic is judging Jenny and the numbers game. So, Jenny, since you get to have your name in the title today, why don't you speak up about what we're judging you about today or others?
So, well, I'm sure I'm judged in many ways, but the one that we're talking about today. So, in the last podcast, we were talking about pharmacy and COGS and percentages. And I very much said, I don't want to say I don't care. I care, but I don't pay a ton of attention to these things. And I find it interesting. So I had a podcast with my CPA who we would go and we would speak places, and people are like, what percentage should my payroll be? What percentage should my COGS be? And I know David probably, gets this this question a lot, what percentage, what makes a no-low practice? What makes a high, and sometimes I feel like people focus too much on the numbers or not at all on the numbers. So I felt like we needed to talk about that, because I do think that veterinarians in general are data driven. They're scientific, math-minded people for the most part. And then they turn into, as Peter has said, you can't hug a computer. So you kind of have to become a people person, and communication, and, and things like that. And so how do you marry those two things? How do you marry the data and the numbers as a practice owner, making sure that, we talked about in the last show that revenue is not profit, and sometimes people only focus on revenue, but if you're spending more than is coming in, you don't have a profit, but also, do we need to make that our main focus, or how do we marry the two? So I don't know, because I do think that I am more team, I don't like the numbers. I am a people person. I got a D in algebra. I'll put that out. So judge me on that, because math is not my thing. So how do you marry that? I don't know.
Well, it's the juxtaposition, I think, between, and you have to have both. You've got good business and good medicine. Whatever that medicine is, if you don't have the business underneath it, you can't do it for very long. So, and I think that's why I tell folks, I mission vision statements, I see them all the time, and it's always, we love pets and we're going to treat you just like family. But I don't see, we promise to you to run a healthy business so that we can be here for your children's pets. And I think you owe it to your clients to tell them we're going to run a healthy business. Because yes, the veterinary profession historically has been very forgiving. And I have many clients that are accidental millionaires. One of my clients coined that for me. But it's becoming less forgiving as support staff costs are going up, and the pharmacy costs and the markups are not what they used to be, like we talked about before. And that becoming less forgiving means it becomes even more important, I think, to start paying, and emphasis on start, but to start paying attention to those numbers. And you can do it, Jenny.
With your help.
Yeah, and numbers aren't just P&L sheets. I'm going to throw in there too, right? Because everybody's looking at percentages and P&L sheets, but coming from the marketing viewpoint of the world, there is a ton of data out there that is available for a hospital to view, just that Google provides for free, right? And I mean, they're using your data, but Google uses everything. So it's not a big secret there, but where is the data coming from? Is Google saying you're getting as many phone calls, as many direction requests? Because, like, if you don't have profit, you can't pay people. So there is a balance there, right? Like the money has to come from somewhere, which typically comes through tails through the door. Well, if your volume is down, are you paying attention to that? Because with good marketing, it takes, I mean, you can pay as much as you want to Google and Facebook to put ads up and get tails through the door tomorrow, but it's expensive. But to have a good marketing program, it's a 3 to 6 month run to get you in a good place. So if you take the eye off the ball, off the numbers, then you could be getting a lag coming through and not know it until it's 3 to 6 months down the road, and then you need a 3 to 6 month turnaround. You see what I'm saying? Like there's kind of a lag bill. So I'm going to advocate for your numbers, Jenny. It's just not your P&L sheet and your cost of goods. There's other numbers, and you even alluded to it, you know, the soft numbers of like staff appreciation, staff retention.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember when we opened that people would say what was it? Was it 25%? Your staff salary should never be more than 25%. And it was like this cap. And I thought, well, but what if it is? You know, and I'm not saying what if it is because of inefficiencies. I'm not saying what if it is because everybody's getting overtime and I'm not scheduling my team right. But what if it is because I'm paying my team really well? Because I try very hard to do that. I believe that I want my team to be able to own a house, not because they have to get married, you know, but because I pay them well enough to do that. I want them to have health insurance. I want them to have, you know, a 401k to help saving for their retirement, like all of these things, but they add up. So to me, if my payroll is higher than that magic 25% or whatever it is now, but I have team members, you know, I have of my doctors, I have one celebrating her 10-year anniversary this Sunday. I'm looking at my calendar, right? I have another doctor who's been here for 11 years. I have another doctor who's been here for 16 years. We opened 17 years ago. You know, I have one of my CVTs is celebrating her 11th anniversary next week. I've got techs that have been here for 16 years. You know, so maybe it's worth it to have your payroll be over that certain percentage. You know, it's weighing those things. So this is what I guess I'm advocating.
I think you're right. It is weighing those things, but I think and paying a living wage is hugely important to keep people in the profession. I'm a big fan of it, and I'm seeing that in income statements now. The disconnect comes the not understanding the consequences, and the profitability goes down, the value of the practice goes down, planning your exit. Not everyone's a corporate target getting silly money. And I think it's important. I have a lot of clients that, yeah, they're not profitable because fill in the blank. They're not going to change. But they made a cognitive decision that we want to discount. It's part of our culture. We want to support the team. We want fill in the blank, and they're okay with that. And I love that because they're making a cognitive decision and it's not just shoot from the hip blindly.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, what's fascinating from, you know, kind of the team well-being perspective as well is there's really only two metrics that we use that any veterinary hospital, you know, it could go to any veterinary hospital and they could have, and that's really our absentee rate and our turnover rate. I mean, that's just about the only thing, you know, and possibly, you know, EAP utilization, but there really isn't anything that specifically tells us like what our culture is like or what, you know, those things are like. However, you know, what was fascinating is, so I, you know, got to sit in a CMO role, and I got to look at our doctors' numbers and getting what I love is what do those numbers represent? You know, as I can see certain numbers and it's like, I know, or I can assume that doctor very likely utilizes their technicians, that if they're doing that, they have a high level of trust with one another. And that is inferred that, you know, a lot of these things are in place. And so what I would say to you, Jenny, is as someone who also, you know, is not numbers averse, but the minutia, I guess, is that I love seeing what all that hard work that we do, you know, bringing the teams together. what the result of that is. And, I know for our smaller practice, when I was, when I was there and was medical director and our PM got together and we really focused on team development and cohesion and these kind of things. And we doubled the gross of the practice in, like 6 years. And it wasn't, I guess this is is that if the profit was the only marker, or if revenue was the only marker or the only thing that we looked at, then, what does success look like, I guess is where I'm going with that. And so, I don't know, I feel like we could talk a lot about strengths and where we put our focus and, how impactful we are, as a leader. And what I would say is that there's a need for both of us. There's a need for somebody to track the numbers and keep us in line. And then there's a need for those of us to, to bring that cohesion and the, psychological safety and that to the practice. Peter?
Yes.
And we're done.
Yes, because I bridge all of this. I'm all about the team. And I believe that the team delivers the outcome. And it does start with a vision and a mission and values, because that helps the team have a direction and a focus.
Yeah.
But it starts with leadership. So let's just say that the ultimate outcome in a practice as to where the focus may be starts at the top. And if you have a leader who's numbers driven, they sometimes don't pay attention to how they got there. They just want to get there. There are direct ways and there are indirect ways. Good luck heading east looking for a sunset. Okay. So it's important that we understand that a business will give a return to the ultimate seller and a job will not. Business owners focus on the numbers and the people. Job owners focus on every day, but they don't have a long-term vision. I do a talk and it really talks about the fact that every small business has 2 clients and only 2 clients. The one you see today and the one that's going to buy your business at some point down the road. And how you take care of client number 1 ultimately determines what client number 2 will return to you. Oh, and by the way, client number 1 is your team as well, because your most important client is your team. But as a veterinarian, we are trained using the darkest, deepest portions of our left brain. And so we are very good at data analysis and lab work and everything else. And to quote one of the greatest gurus in business, soft is hard. Soft skills are really hard. And that's why we don't do them all that well. We don't choose our veterinarians to go to veterinary school because they have an EQ. We choose them because they have an IQ. And so what we have to learn as we head into this next generation of veterinary hospitals is that a combination of monitoring relationships and transactions will ultimately be the best focus. And so there's a great book called The Double Bottom Line. One is about one bottom line is the people, the other bottom line is the profits. And we have to do both to ultimately have a business that will give us a return. There was a number, and I can't find it. I was looking for it while all of you were going off on your monologues. But I think it was from AHA that basically said 60% of the veterinary hospitals manage their businesses without looking at numbers.
I believe that.
60% are driving without looking out the windshield or the dashboard. And they're just driving blindly. And David will let me just finish my final thought. David will tell you that about 50% of the veterinary hospitals are owned by people who own a job because they really don't have a value and they will not give themselves a return. And they're probably just fine. They're just happy. And if they have good financial planners, they have put enough money away so that when they get to 85 years of age, because they've had to work that long, they will have the ability to walk away and not worry about it.
Yeah.
That's just not going to be the case any longer going forward. I really do think we have to learn how to balance both. You can't be afraid of the numbers and you can't be afraid of the people.
I think coming back to what you had started off with, Jenny, is want to take care of the team. 100% believe in that, subscribe to that, and try to walk the talk. But taking care of the team and taking care of the business so that you can keep taking care of the team. I mean, where that comes together, and I just had this with a client this morning. Every time you give a raise, there should be an immediate and corresponding service fee increase. You want to make more? That's great. I'll pay you more, but we have to charge more. And so some of the numbering, if you will, if you're subscribing, give a raise the fees, you're doing it. You just are calling it something else and doing it for a different reason. But you have that foundation, which will just bring you up a little bit.
I do think it was funny because yesterday after the last talk podcast, Cody and I were talking. He said, well, if you're not looking at the numbers, it's because you haven't been close enough to bankruptcy. And I was like, okay, you're not wrong. And I have been there. We were a no-low practice. We went from 1,000 square feet to 13,000 square feet. And my husband, who is 100% Peter Park at 60% who does not look at numbers, said, I don't want to charge more because I don't want my clients to think they're paying for the building. And I'm like, but somebody has to, because we just took out a 2 million loan that we have to pay back. So for 2 years, I fought. We went through our personal savings to pay for my team. I mean, it was a nightmare. So yeah, I was like, no, I was really into the numbers at that point. And I do look at my numbers and I do make sure that we, where, if there's any big discrepancies and things like that, I just don't let it consume me. And I love when people are like, well, what's your percentage for this? I don't know. Can I figure it out? Absolutely, I sure can. Do I figure it out every now and then? Sure I do. But do I know it off the top of my head? Nope, because as soon as I figure it out, it's, I've used it for whatever conversation I'm having and it's gone. So I guess my story is, don't wait until you're close to bankruptcy to look at your numbers, because that's not good. And but you do need to know, like, I reconcile every day. I know what goes in, what comes out, right? And you do have to make a profit in order to pay your team. And I don't have a lot of clients who complain about our prices, because we are on call 24 hours a day, because I have very high client retention as well as team retention. And I believe those two go hand in hand. And so whenever I do have somebody say, your prices are this, and I'm like, do you want us to be on call 24 hours a day? Do you want a certified veterinary technician who's been to anesthesia boot camp to run the anesthesia on your animal? Because if you want these things, then, and you want them to stay here, then we have to pay them. And the client will be like, oh yeah, okay, fine. And they stop. But and I agree a lot with what Peter was saying, that, if you're looking at profits and the tails, as Kelly says, the tails coming through the door and the clients and then the team, I feel like that needs to be flipped, because if you take care of your team, they're going to take care of your clients and your patients, and the profit is going to come. But it can't be that your focus. So there's my soapbox.
Well,
Balancing everything.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've been a little bit shaken up by is the national corporations, which tend to be numbers driven and push the corporate practices. They manage to the numbers, have created a bad thing for numbers. Really, the question that veterinarians have to ask themselves, is profit a bad thing? It's not.
Right.
You can pay your people appropriately, but you may not pay yourself any more than you would be paying yourself as a veterinarian. You don't have to sacrifice the practice for your team, you sacrifice yourself as the owner for your team. And so if you want to own a non-501c3 not-for-profit, we have plenty of those. But I do think that keeping a focus on all the moving parts is necessary to truly deliver what you want to your clients. You got to take care of the peeps and you got to take care of the profits.
Yeah. Testify.
Yeah. Is that where we
And-
want to leave it today, ladies and gentlemen?
So have I been
I-
judged in a positive way or in a negative way? I don't know how this went.
I think that was positive. Thumbs up.
I think it was good.
So I
Yes,
got a
so-
quote from a quote from Colin Powell to wrap it up. Although I think Colin Richmond Powell over there wanted to say something. So Phil, did you want to say something before I give a quote?
The one thing I wanted to say is if you are numbers averse, is just getting curious about, like, genuinely on a gut level, why? You know, why do I not want to look at the numbers? You know, is it I don't feel like I have the competency or the training? Is it that I feel like, you know, that I don't want to charge clients a little more because I feel like they're going to judge me? Or, you know, where is the conversation? Where is the framing? You know, where's the expectation
I think
set?
that's
And
it's
so
very
that
well
was really
said,
helpful.
because I've had clients, and I remember one distinctly, that every time we did evaluation for management and planning purposes to diagnose what was going on, and started helping them heal the practice financially. And every time the checking account started to accumulate money, expenses went sideways. And what it came out exploring that, and he felt guilty making money. And I had to give him permission to pay himself as a doctor, to pay, you know, and that he's earned that return by taking on all the risk. And once those dots were connected, it didn't become an overnight blossom, but steps were taken. And it was that self barrier of that I can't make money. I shouldn't do that. And it just got in the way.
Leadership is all about people. It's not about organizations. It's not about plans. It's not about strategies. It's all about people motivating people to get the job done. You have to be people-centered. Colin Powell, drop mic.
And with that, we thank you all and we'll see you next time.